I am now pleased to introduce our student speaker, Brandon Kuiper.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, family, friends, colleagues, and Cody. I'd like to welcome you again to this commencement ceremony of the class of 2014. To my classmates, today we become doctors. Let us bow our heads. God, forgive us, for we know not what we are going to do. Seriously, thank you for our neurotic, obsessive-compulsive tendencies that led us to this day, and for the early Friday happy hours that sustained us after our exams. Thank you for our wisdom that you left us in the good book, better known as Up to Date, and for nearly universal Wi-Fi that allowed us to access it. Lead us not into the temptations of gummy bears and curly fries during overnight call, but deliver us from the evil one, our loan officers. And lastly, we ask that you please protect all of your children who enter our hospitals in the next few months. Amen. It is such a privilege to be here today, to have personally survived these past 4 years without the admissions committee realizing that they'd made a mistake, but an even greater privilege to share this stage with these very special people. In the company of genius, in the presence of compassion, I've spent the last 4 years dwelling amongst the very best of our nation. I feel so incredibly humbled and so fortunate to be counted amongst your ranks. But certainly none of us in this auditorium would be here today without some very special people. Some who are with us here today, some who could not make the journey, and others who've left this earth but are always with us in our hearts. Would you take with me just a moment to think about all those people who left their fingerprints on your life and shared in your success? Whomever you pictured in your mind, how special they must feel to know that you were thinking about them just now. How proud they must be of you today, and how fortunate are we to have had their loving guidance in our lives. I would like to thank my classmates for being an inspiration to me each and every day. You see, these are the remarkable people I have had the great fortune to know, to train with, and these are the remarkable people that I get to call my friends. Brilliantly dedicated people like Sam Talk, who completed his PhD while we were first years by driving to Los Angeles every weekend, living up a steady diet of pho noodles and Coca-Cola. A man who is now prepared to complete his surgical residency as a captain in the United States Army and commit to serve our men and women in uniform. Courageous people like Brittany Lewis, Rachel Mitchell, Joni McCuddy, or Tona Rodriguez, who excelled as student doctors while also tending to the needs of their children at home. If their resumes said nothing other than medical student and mother, they would still say so much more than mine. People who understand the importance of family, like Jules Verreau, who drove every day from the Bay Area 80 miles away because he'd made a commitment to be home every night to tuck his son in at bedtime. Or Louis Godoy, who arrived from Vacaville 2 to 3 hours earlier than scheduled class, using that time to study so that when he went home at the end of the day, he could fully dedicate himself to his wife and his children. Or Tyler Andre, now a father of 3, who in addition to his family commitments, volunteered to lead a young men's group in the community because he understood the importance of strong role models in the upbringing of young boys. As colleagues, we pursued a common dream to not just become doctors, but to become great doctors. And while our dream is not yet fully realized, I can assure all of you that you are all already on the pathway to greatness. So what advice can I give you? What wisdom can I possibly share that you have not already gleaned for yourself? While I cannot advise you on greatness, I can tell you of a great man, a man who once shared with me perhaps the greatest advice I'd ever received in my training. Let me tell you a story of a patient that I'd met while working at the VA. A patient whose words have been forever etched onto my heart. He was an officer of the Navy and served a distinguished career. He had many ailments, as old men often do, but he was admitted for intractable pain and difficulty breathing. In short order, we discovered that he had widely metastatic bladder cancer. His urine was crimson-tinged, his liver swollen with tumor. His lungs were loaded with ominous nodes like deadly balls of cotton, and his spine was riddled with moth-chewed lesions. In a word, he was dying. After days of deliberation, he made the courageous decision to return home. Now, we had chatted politely. He had told me stories of war and family, of childhood dreams and old man's regrets. On our last morning, he was already sitting up in bed when I arrived, as you might expect an old military man might be. I asked him the requisite health questions, and we talked for some time, as we had gotten in the habit of doing, when he turned to me with his clouded blue eyes and said quietly, "Son, I know that I'm dying, but I'm not afraid to die. Why? Because I know that my life had meaning. My children grew up well. I loved my wife faithfully for 60 years. I served my country, and every day that I got up to work, I knew that I was working for a greater purpose, and not just for myself. Remember this always. Do your job for others' sakes, because people are essentially good and therefore deserve your best. You're going to be a damn fine doctor, son. Thank you for listening." Thank you for listening. The most fundamental action of any relationship we enter is to humble ourselves, to quiet ourselves and submit our whole being, to be present with another human and allow their story to pour over us. Perhaps if we all spent a little more time actively listening each day in communion with each other, we might discover the extraordinary wisdom of everyday ordinary people. Ordinary people. Ordinary people who are essentially good. But who defines goodness? Surely it is not the physician who weighs the scales of justice. So then I suggest a different philosophy, an intentional choice that we must make each day, to treat all of our patients with an equal degree of compassion and understanding and dignity. I implore you to get up each day actively seeking to do the best work you are capable of simply because you are working for other people who have difficult lives and deadlines and bills to be paid only by prayer and miracle, but nonetheless people who deserve our best simply because they are human beings. That is a radical and a difficult philosophy, and assuredly such a life is not easy. But we did not become physicians for an easy life. We became physicians for a life of purpose. So now as we prepare to slip on our long white coats, to take up this mantle, to accept this charge to be the stewards of society, we cannot help but think about what precarious times we live in. With the passage of the Affordable Care Act, our profession is changing. So much has been made of this piece of legislation already that I will not now waste another breath debating its merits and faults, except to say, I am not afraid of what may come. I have no fear because I know the men and women who have raised their hands to take this oath, to serve the needs of the ill, to be the voice of the infirm. And as long as these doctors are keeping vigil over the wards and greeting patients in the clinic, I trust that our society is in good hands. When an elderly man is brought into the clinic by his scared wife because his memory is waning so fast, Dr. Olivia Campa will be there, embracing the wife with support and encouragement and ensuring that this gentleman receives all the appropriate care to fight his battle against Alzheimer's. When a nervous young couple brings in their brand new baby girl because she has hiccups, Dr. Melissa Harada will be there to reassure them that it's okay. Your baby is perfect and healthy. When a middle-aged father of 3 is diagnosed unexpectedly with advanced pancreatic cancer, when treatment has failed and when hope is lost, Dr. Alexei Korolov will place his arm around him, take his hand, guide him through the end of this life, leading him up to that door that leads to the next. When a young woman falls into a puddle of desperation and fear, utterly lost and hopeless, her mind twisted to believe that only by ending this life can she find peace, Dr. Leon Cushenberry will lift her chin, meet her eyes, and say, "No, my dear, you are special and strong, and you have a purpose, and together we're going to get through this." And they will. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the remarkable men and women of the class of 2014. My friends, now begins the next great adventure. You are our leaders and healers, our next generation and our hope. When you auscultate the heart, listen to the story that it tells. When you inspect the skin, do not ignore the scars, for in them lies the history of struggle. When you palpate the shoulders, do not ignore the burdens that they carry. Be gentle, be patient, strive to inspire, and be humble so that you too may be inspired by others. Never lose faith in miracles, and to the best of your ability, be the instrument by which they may occur. Be vigilant in your duties and generous in your spirit. You don't have to save the world, but for every family member of a sick patient, you will. And remember always, do your job for others' sake, because people are essentially good and deserve your best. You're all going to be damn fine doctors. Thank you for listening.
Brandon's faculty and colleagues describe him as an outgoing, socially conscious friend who has an optimistic spirit, and we saw that with his speech today, and certainly passion for helping others. He's known as a strong leader with a proven commitment to teamwork, and he's done many valuable services to the community through many activities, ranging from being a board member and co-director of one of our clinics, the Paul Hum Asian Student-Run Clinic, to volunteering with the Power of No Youth Conference. He helps adolescents deal with peer pressure, bullying, staying safe in the world of social media. He was an applicant screener of our admissions committee, so he's led in even more amazing students for the future. He's led classroom discussions in partnership with our professional improvement committee and was a facilitator in the Doctoring Forward, which is the year-long course that provides students with opportunities to teach and mentors junior students. Brandon was commissioned into the U.S. Air Force and will be entering the internal medicine residency program at the San Antonio Military Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. And as you can tell from his speech, he epitomizes the values of our school and has been selected into the National Gold Humanist Honor Society for his commitment to compassionate patient care. I know he will be a caring, compassionate physician and leader in his community wherever he chooses to practice. So thank you for a wonderful speech.